And welcome back. Cheryl Jones with us. George Norrie here. Cheryl, so what's his target date for getting this stuff rolling?
Uh, there's no definite date yet, but it's somewhere between the end of 24 and 25, and that's because there are so many different steps in the process as you go along. It's like a stair step. You can't get to the one above until you go through the one below. But he says that they're pretty much on target with getting it out within months.
You do know I'm going to assign you to take one of those little trips.
It may be a little trip. I may be the one that hovers on the ground.
He was talking about it hovering only about 5 feet or so, too.
Well, yeah, but he's
hovering.
That's just that's yeah. That could be takeoff or landing or anywhere where you didn't have anything but complete flat. And I think that what they're hoping in the beginning is that this will be used very, very carefully and in areas where there's not a lot of congestion in the beginning. Now, there are computers aboard and sensors and the cameras and all of the things that advanced technology brings, but still, again, it's another craft in the air, and so it is something that we're not used to, and those of us who are a little more hesitant and don't have the money for it will just be watching from the ground and waiting to see what happens and hoping for the best. But at least they do have a ballistic parachute on board, and it floats.
Well, those are smart ideas, but I got to tell you, I'm concerned about the traffic jams. I really am.
Yes, but I don't know that they're counting on all that many. Now, there are helicopters, in the air, as we know, and there are agencies. There's NASA that's interested, and other government agencies and law enforcement and that sort of thing with rescue agencies. So we will see how it all unfolds. I don't think that they think it's going to be that many people actually consuming that airspace. So we'll see. It's all new territory.
Do you ever see the day where UPS will deliver with this stuff?
Well, that's a possibility. And a lot of this is a personal flying car, a two-seater.
A two-seater, right.
And some of them are cargo craft, and some are air taxis, like in China. China, is coming along, but they have less restrictions as well. So I think it would be interesting to watch and see what happens in all these other countries that are doing the same thing.
Well, let's go to the phones. Bud's driving in Texas. Welcome to the program. Hey, Bud, let's get us started.
Am I on?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I don't want to sound like a damp rag, but I like the concept. I'm on my way from Oshkosh. There's a flying car there coming out called the Switchblade. But anyway, this vehicle's like that. There's a good side. I like the concept. They can rescue with it. But just like the Internet, the bad guys can get a hold of this. And that's not good. So some restrictions need to come out because you can go into a yard and pick up a prisoner. Or you could steal stuff with it. So let's see if we can get some right credentials for people that fly these things. And I'll take whatever comments you have off the air. Thank you very much for allowing me to talk.
Thank you, Bud. What about the downside of some of this, Cheryl?
Well, there is a downside, just as with everything else, and I asked him about that, and he said they had a lot of security, just as all aircraft do, and they've taken all measures to be sure that the aviation is protected from cyber attacks, and they have backup protection. And there is still ongoing efforts with the FAA and NASA and other government agencies involved, in local and higher national levels, to work these things out. So I'm sure there will be more regulations and more things to come. It's just a work in progress.
Joe in Long Island, New York, east of the Rockies. Hey, Joseph, go ahead.
Hi, Cheryl. Before I get to the flying cars, this LifeSiteNews.com has some follow-up articles on the WHO and their issues, so I know you were interested in that, so that's LifeSiteNews.com. But there's a couple of issues with these flying cars. One would be the eyesight. Most people that have, say, an extra couple $100,000, $300,000 tend to be these computer people or a lawyer or something that's doing close-up work and probably doesn't have keen enough eyesight to be able to see from the sky and maneuver in different lighting conditions. And as far as, like, old shows, they had on Hulu the old Speed Racer shows, and that depicted Speed Racer as doing a little flying on over some cliffs, and then you had Evel Knievel. Didn't he try and fly something over a canyon or something like that? So I guess there's some precedence for the idea, and I think like it might be good in a place like Alaska to try it out rather than a metro area to start.
I think Evel came down in a parachute too, didn't he? That vehicle he was in?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think that's what happened. You there, Cheryl?
Yeah. Well, that's good. Yeah, and thank you for that information. And yes, we do need to keep up with the WHO now that you mentioned that, because that is something that's happening very fast when nobody's paying attention to it, and that is a pandemic treaty that they're trying to rush through and take our sovereignty and all of our control. And with all of that, that's a whole other topic. But thanks for bringing that up. Yes, people do need to pay close attention to what's happening there. They do have the cameras, and if someone doesn't have the sufficient eyesight to handle that, I don't think they would be a likely customer. Everybody knows their own limitations.
What's your take on the UFO hearing that they had Wednesday?
Well, that was interesting, wasn't it? What I'd like to know is, all the people who are vetted, in anything across the board. I mean, we face this in every issue and every level of everything that has control over us. Who vets the vetters, and what kind of vetting is there? And that's not to say that anyone, who's supposedly vetted and all above board and all that is not what they say they are, but we have no way of vetting everything that needs to be vetted. Then on the other hand, who's going to be in control of the information? I feel like we're inching more and more toward controlled information, classified. You could see the frustration with Congressman Tim Burchett and Matt Gaetz and others on the Oversight Committee, where they've just been beating their heads against the wall. So I'm just wondering where it's leading to, and I wonder why there's not been more effort from the very beginning, which I believe the first task force hearing was in June of 2021. I'm wondering why there hasn't been more effort to go back in history and study and analyze all of the information that has been brought forth over the past 7+ decades.
It's probably been done clandestinely.
Right. So, and then again, it's just like has been like the point that's been brought up by those in charge of the committee. Where's the money coming from? We know it's coming from taxpayers to study all of this, and they say they've been studying it for so long now. And what is it being spent on? And if it's called a classified area or national security, there you go. There's no way to confirm or no accountability. So it's a frustrating situation. And there's, we are just told what someone has seen or what has been confirmed by somebody else, but we have no way of knowing, and we're not. We're the taxpayers paying for everything. What
would your friend Edgar Mitchell have been saying right now?
Oh, I think he would be very excited, and the fact that you mentioned him, that's just what I'm talking about. People of that era, they seem to wait until people die before they want to open any files. But he would be glad that there's some progress, and yes, there is progress. It's just.
Would he be testifying? He might.
Well, I mean, he would be a good witness because, of his experience and his involvement and his research.
Let's go to Chris in Alabama. Welcome to the show. Hey, Chris, go ahead.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Sure.
For taking my call. I guess I don't mean to sidetrack or anything like that, but you have been on this show before, and you talked about how TBIs or traumatic brain injuries, can have a everlasting effect, on an individual. I was just curious to how that would apply, if it does at all. I have no idea.
To what?
The thing is, if it can apply.
Apply to what?
To what we're talking about now.
I don't follow your question. Do you, Cheryl?
I didn't understand what I didn't understand what he said.
Traumatic brain injuries, but I don't think he was tying it into the flights.
I'm not quite sure either.
But they're not going to let people fly who are handicapped.
No, this is not for everybody.
It's like a driver's license.
There would be very few people, in the overall scheme of things, who would be, potential clients, because this is not something that would be appropriate for everybody. And I think, first of all, you have to be able to afford it. But the price apparently is much lower than it was thought that it would have been some time ago. Initially, the word was that when these things came out, they'd be about $2 million. That's out of the range of just about everyone. But now, 250 to 300,000. It's out of the range of most of us who. A lot of people wouldn't even be interested, wouldn't be prospective clients.
Michael in Kansas, you're up, Michael. Thank you for calling.
Hi, George. Thanks.
Thank you, Michael.
Cheryl, yes, Trump was right, first of all. And the late, great God Emperor of Dune, a.k.a. Rush Limbaugh, taught us that automobiles are freedom machines. And anyone with eyes can see that climate change is a lie, and it's being used to eliminate our freedom machines. But my point I want to make to you guys is that few people ever talk about this, but making things electric does not make a product better for the environment. Electricity has to be generated somehow, and have you seen the minds of children in Africa that it takes to make, the batteries and stuff? I just wondered what you guys thought about people equating electric with environmentally.
Well, I've long been saying that I think we're going through an Earth cycle. So our previous guest, of course, believes in man-made climate change. I think we're going through an Earth cycle. Cheryl, I don't know if you take a position with that.
Well, we're all guessing at everything because we really don't know the real truth and on all of these things that are going on around us. We just have to kind of go by what we know and what we can gather and what we can learn about it. But yeah, it seems like everything goes in cycles. Electric has its downside too. They will be using the lithium batteries. So we shall see what happens.
Let's go to Michael in Tennessee. Happens to be a first-time caller for us. Hello, Michael.
Hello. Thank you for having me, man.
My pleasure, my friend. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. I have two types of questions about the Durrani H1. What would be the type of license to acquire to be able to use this luxury vehicle? And what would be features of the Durrani H1?
Okay, it's a two-seater. It's called a personal flying car, or an eVTOL, EVTOL, and that is electric vertical takeoff and landing. And it is since it's not an air taxi, it's not a cargo. The weight that it can handle is 500 pounds, and the range is about 60 to 100 miles, and it can go up to about an hour in flight. And then you can park it in a two-car garage. As far as the license, that's really amazing. It's you have to have a driver's license, and you need 20 hours of specific training, and of that 20 hours, 5 hours is solo, and that's on their facility. Now, there are other startup companies around, startup flying car companies, and they all have their different requirements. But all of this is actually coming under the FAA, under the Light Sport Pilot Certificate. So you just have to go through those steps in that training and pass everything, and see where it goes. If you're an interested pilot, that is.
And it's entirely conceivable too, Cheryl, that they're going to require more hours for that flight license.
I would think so. That's what is required now in that one level from the FAA, the Light Sport Pilot Certificate. Then there's the recreational, and then there's the private pilot. So there are different stages. But now, hot air ballooning, for instance, was under the FAA. That required a written and a solo flight, and hours. But that's a whole different ballgame. But you can be something can be under the FAA and not really require a pilot license, a regular pilot license.
Let's go to Cornelius in Louisiana. Hello there, Mr. White.
Hey, what's up there, Cheryl and George?
Kind of caught you there, didn't we?
Yeah, you caught me by surprise. Look, George and Cheryl, I want to talk about the hearing. I was just telling Tommy Danheiser, boy, I saw George Knapp just smile behind David Grush, and I hope y'all will get some of those pilots, that famous, Black Aces Navy pilot. Y'all need to get him. And I just want to give a quick shout-out. Big Jim in the big island of Hawaii. Aloha. So I had to give a big shout-out to Big Jim. But
how's our buddy Barry doing?
Oh, yeah, he's in rehab. So he's doing well. Thank you for praying for him. And my question for both of y'all, boy, I wish Art Bell was alive. I wish Dr. Lear was alive. And, of course, our friend Stanton Freeman to see all of this. Well, George Knapp, I was on his program the other week, and he said one man's alien is another man's angel. So I believe that they're angels and stuff. So that's my perspective.
All right, my friend, we're going to take a break pretty soon, Cheryl, and we'll come back and wrap things up with you on Coast to Coast AM. Cheryl, give out your website, if you would.
Okay, that is my name, Cheryl Jones, and that's CHERYLL Jones, JONES.com. That's 2 L's.
And if you missed that, folks, we've got it linked up at coasttocoastam.com. Cheryl, do you take emails through that website?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, we will come back and wrap things up with Cheryl Jones and also pay tribute to a late guest, Kevin Mitnick. And welcome back, George Norrie, along with Cheryl Jones. Let's go to Marcy in San Diego. Marcy, go for it.
Hi.
Hi there.
I think a lot of people might be afraid of this. I lived in a high-rise in Hawaii the first time I was married, and they had an earthquake over there, and I was on the 19th floor, and that building started swaying big time.
Oh, boy.
And I've never been so scared in all my life. All of the blood drained out of my face. I just froze. Everybody else was running to the elevator, but my husband, I've been married to 40 years. He already owned this house, and it's on the ground, thank God. And my brother bought a small plane and took my mom and I up, and I couldn't wait to get my feet back on the ground. I just think a lot of people might have a primal fear, and I don't know why, but if you put a cat in the car and you start driving, my God, they freak out. They have to be in an animal carrier. I think it's the same kind of primal fear. I think if God wanted us to fly, we'd be born with wings.
He'd give us wings like angels, to be sure. Cheryl, you know what? That's a possibility. I'm not sure I would fly in a flying car. What about you?
Well, I'm not either. First of all, they're pretty expensive, but it's not for everyone. There may be situations where it's really a good fit, where other aircraft can't accommodate, and especially in emergency situations, as he mentioned, a doctor was using one or would like to use one.
I don't know, but I'm still not sure we would ever do it. Cheryl, thanks for the report. Great job. We'll talk to you again next month. Folks, the world's famous computer hacker and the most wanted man on the FBI's list, who then became a really good guy, Kevin Mitnick. We lost him almost 2 weeks ago. Kevin, does Bitcoin, can somebody hack into that, Bitcoin, and steal coins? Not through ransoming companies, but literally straight into the Bitcoin system.
Well, there's been exchanges that have been compromised where people lost their Bitcoin. And also, when I've been doing penetration testing work, because my company does ethical hacking work where companies hire us to test their security.
Yes.
By being the adversary, the simulated adversary. And we find that, we found a number of employees at companies actually keep the credentials to access their Bitcoin wallet stored in the Chrome browser, which is crazy. And in one case, I found a document on an employee's computer that had their Bitcoin recovery key, which is 24 words. So if you lose your password and you need to get access to your Bitcoin, the recovery key is there. So people, unfortunately, have been a little bit sloppy when it comes to managing the credentials to access their wallets. So we see it all the time where people get hacked, unfortunately. And one of the reasons people get hacked is they're not using 2FA, or what we call multi-factor authentication. So usually on many services today, as you know, George, can enable 2FA. So when you log in, not only do you need your login and password, you need to have a code.
That's right.
The code could be text to you on your phone, or it could be an app on your phone. What's interesting, and this is this gives you fantastic insight into people's behavior, George, is Twitter came out with a report, and the report was between July 2020 and December 2020. So for a five-month period, they analyzed all the Twitter accounts, and of course, there's a significant number of Twitter users, and only 2.3%, again, 2.3% enabled 2FA.
That's it.
A very, very small percentage. Yep. So it gives you a little bit of insight. Unfortunately, people tend to be lazy, and when you're lazy, you can get caught with your pants down. So it's really important to protect yourself.
I read a story today that Jack Dorsey from Twitter is going to be sued for billions over some investor situation.
I haven't read that story, so I wouldn't know how to comment, unfortunately.
Alleging that he misled them, so we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, but when you have money, when you're a billionaire, if you're an Elon Musk, if you're Jack Dorsey, people sue you because they hope that you'll just settle out of court and pay them a fee.
And apparently they're going to settle for $800 million. Apparently.
Okay.
That's a lot of money.
That's a little bit more than John McAfee had.
Yeah, it sure is. Let's take some calls here for you, Kev. Let's go to Jacques in Tacoma, Washington. Welcome to the program. Hey, Jacques, thanks for calling.
Hey there, gentlemen. How are you tonight?
Great, thanks.
I didn't actually even expect to get on, so I'm a little stunned. Please forgive me.
You did it. You made it.
Yeah, hey, nice. Kevin, it's good to speak to you. It's been an interesting climate lately. The one thing that I wanted to actually ask you about, I come from that crawling climate of MSPs. I got out of it a while ago, but a friend of mine still works in the MSP arena, and he's working network security for government work in San Diego. And there are a lot of new regulations the government just put in place. So, man, it's phone books full. But the question I had for you is, do you have any advice for the MSPs right now? Because the solar winds thing, oh my God, that's a little terrifying. I mean, we've got these other IT service providers out there, and then the last breach as well. We've got these IT service providers out there boasting their network security skills and saying, hey, we're going to take on a client. They take on these Fortune 500 and 100 clients, and then they get breached. Oh,
yeah.
And that just happened. Man, we know what happened. I'm not going to talk about it, but we know what happened.
By the way, are you the guy tweeting to me on Twitter right now? Because it's the same name. Anyway, MSPs are a target-rich environment. So as you said, you know about the solar winds attack. I believe if you remember Cassia, Cassia, I believe it was an RMM tool for remote management, and that was I believe compromised through another type of supply chain attack, and the bad actors in this case were able to access all the, well, at least I think about 1,500, 2,000 customers. It's hard to remember without rereading the press release. So yeah, if you're in an MSP environment, it's really important to have a good security program and good processes in place, security testing, of course, and really closing up those security gaps, because you're definitely going to be a target.
Kevin, when that phrase bad actors is used, and I've heard it so many times, exactly what does that mean?
That means a person that is trying to cause you as a consumer or a business harm, an attacker, a criminal, a cyber criminal. So it's just another term. You read about these terms when you're reading FCC documents. Yeah. It's really the same thing. A bad actor, bad person, evil person, criminal. It's pretty similar.
He may be an evil person, but a good actor, right?
Could be.
Yeah.
That's a possibility. But, yeah, it just means a bad guy. That's the best way to think about it.
Let's go to Carl in Boston, Mass. Hey, Carl, thanks for calling.
Hi, George. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure thing.
And, how you doing? Anyway, I had a question. I was just wondering how, seriously advanced these computers are, these quantum computers, because my math that I did is 98,304 exchanges per nanosecond. The first number I got was 152, and but I realized they do in and out, and I think it's per nanosecond that exchanges can happen. And then my next question is, how many quantum computers are accessible to the public? And I know for a chiropractor verb processor, it's like 28K, and for a brand new one, it's 38K. So what is the danger in this accessibility? Thank you.
Well, first of all, I haven't did a deep dive into quantum technology, but I was unfamiliar that it's available really in the commercial realm. Where I think about using quantum computing technology is really for cracking crypto, because it gives us an opportunity to quickly to derive a key, to obviously get access to the plain text, to the key material, to get the material that's protected with encryption. But unfortunately, I'm not familiar with the commercial versions of quantum computing. I didn't even know it existed.
Okay, thanks, Carl. Appreciate you being part of the program. Kevin, since you've been working for companies, have you been able to hack into every one that they've hired you to hack into?
Yeah, pretty much since 2004, started the company, Mitnick Security Consulting, and with our team of engineers since 2004, in every security assessment that we've been hired to do, that we're allowed to use social engineering and scope of the assessment. What that means is where we could use phishing attacks like we described earlier, or we could do pretext phone calls. And what is a pretext phone call? That's where you call somebody up over the telephone, and you pretend to be somebody you're not, and you get them to reveal information or to do something. So when we're allowed to use that type of tradecraft, it's been 100% success rate of being able to breach a client. In some cases, we've been hired where the focus was very narrow. It might be on a web application. Think of a portal, George, like when you log on to chase.com, for example. In some of those cases, we're able to find problems, but we weren't able to breach the bank.
Does somebody ever have the capability of tying into some other country's nuke launching systems and controlling it? Can they do that?
I haven't heard of it. Well, I've been accused of it, George, when I was arrested back in the 90s. Oh, yeah. I was accused of it. And actually, I don't know if you remember, but a federal prosecutor at a bail hearing when I was arrested told the federal judge that not only did they have to hold me in custody as a national security risk, but they had to make sure I couldn't get access to a telephone, because if I got access to a telephone, then I could call up the modems at NORAD, Northern Air Defense, and he actually said I could whistle into the phone and communicate with the modems and actually launch a nuclear weapon. And I started laughing in federal court because I never heard of something so stupid in my life. And my attorney got really upset with me because you're never supposed to laugh when you're a defendant in federal court. But the judge, unbelievably, bought the story. And I was actually held in solitary confinement for a year in a federal detention. Yeah, in a federal detention center, based on the threat that I could launch a nuclear ICBM. Do I think it's really possible? Not remotely. I mean, unfortunately, I don't have much visibility into the technology that the president carries and that sort of thing. But I highly doubt that a foreign adversary would be able to launch a nuclear strike through hacking tradecraft. I don't think. Well, let me word it a different way. I hope it's not possible. I don't think it's possible, but I hope it's not possible.
John in Kentucky, take it away, John.
Hey, George, how are you?
Great, John. Thank you.
Yeah, hear your voice, and I hope you have a good weekend coming up. I hear it's going to be fantastic.
It's sold out, I think. Yeah.
Kevin, it's an honor to speak to you, and I'm a little peed off. I'm 50-some years old. I've been an online gamer forever, and I was wondering how serious is the government taking these people that codes the online cheats to streaming loaders that they sell, that they rent out or sub. It's getting on PC gaming, it's been around since early millennium, pretty heavy. And I was just wondering, if you get a 64-player server and you have, which is a gaming server, and everybody goes out and buys a 60 per se, $100 game, isn't that a criminal offense for that person making those online codes? Like if you go steal in some states $500, that's considered a felony. So how is that not considered a felony?
Well, unfortunately, I'm not an attorney, so I wouldn't know how to answer that question. But I haven't heard of any prosecution for any attacker, let's say, in the gaming field where they're doing cheat sheets to cheat a game. I haven't read about that. And usually I keep my ear close to the ground on computer crime type cases. So unfortunately, I wouldn't know how to answer your question because I'm not familiar with the laws on this particular subject.
Kevin, since you've been doing this, of course, and it's been a number of years now, what has been for you personally the most satisfying aspect of what you do?
Helping my clients, helping the world, helping businesses, protect their assets from again the bad actors out there. So I really take personal satisfaction. And I kind of wear two hats, George. I run a company, like I mentioned before, that does security testing. So that's where we get to wear the offensive hat. And in the security community, it's called like a red hat. It's like you're a red teamer because you're doing offensive work. And then on the other side of the coin, I'm part of a company that was founded, about 10 years ago called KNOWBE4, KNOWBE4. And this is where we help companies defend against exactly the same type of attack you mentioned earlier, phishing. And this is where we focus on helping businesses mitigate social engineering attacks through security awareness training and simulated phishing. So what we actually do is we have a platform that companies could, access where they could do phishing attacks on their own employees. And rather than getting, ransomware or having their passwords stolen and that sort of thing, if they end up falling for the phish, well, they have to watch a training video. And most likely that training video is going to be me training them.
I love it.
You made a mistake. That wasn't real, and trying to hold that person's hand to try to help educate them as to what the real threats out there. Because people, they're trying to do their, they're basically focused on doing, carrying out their job responsibilities on a day-to-day basis. They're not thinking about being victimized by an attacker. So this is not something people are used to, seeing. So what we try to do is educate people and raise their awareness. So when a real attacker comes and sends a phishing attack, hopefully the person is going to step back and think smarter before complying.
Kevin Mitnick will be missed. For Adam Thompson, Tom Danheiser, Dan Galante, Lisa Lyon, Lex Lonehood, Sean Ladouceur, Stephanie Smith, Chris Burrows, Tim Banal, Ryan Stacy, Ian Punnett,